Welcome back to the Racial Draft Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Ford, joined by amazing patient people, including Julia Delbel. Julia, how's it going tonight?
Good thing.
We are also joined by the greatest new entrant into the Racial Draft family in the last month, we'll say, Jared Kirschenbaum. Jared, how's it going?
Doing pretty fantastically.
Fantastically. We can't let that cook on its own. How fantastic.
Pretty fantastically.
On a scale of Reed Richards to Johnny Storm.
We're at a She-Hulk. A She-Hulk when she makes her appearances.
Got it. All right, that's pretty fantastic. And we're also joined by returning champion Carlos.
That's me, returning champion. I'm always the returning champion.
Yeah.
It's getting boring, guys.
Go ahead and do your
The champ is here.
Yeah. All right. Well, if this is your first episode of the Racial Draft Podcast, I apologize, but we are going to do what we do every week, and that is change the complexion of the comic book universe, one draft pick at a time via the Racial Draft. And we are in trade week. More on that later when we get into our Racial Draft business. But before we get into our Racial Draft business, we're going to talk about nerd news. And it's been a not too terribly newsworthy week this time around. I'll take you through the minor things that went down over the weekend. There was a movie in the Predator universe called Prey. Carlos, you wrote about that for our friends at Agents of Fandom, right?
Yeah, I sure did. I was gifted a screener and I got to watch it without the post-credit scene though. So didn't.
Wait, there's a post-credit scene?
Apparently there is. I haven't watched it since it was released.
I have
mainstream.
Watched it, so I need to go back to my Hulu and do that.
Yeah, I've been super busy this weekend, so I haven't been able to check it out. But I think it's easily the best Predator movie since Predator. It might be better than Predator, but I wouldn't go necessarily that far. It's fantastic.
I from non-spoiler people, I too share Carlos's perspective on the movie. The movie's called Prey, and if you have a streaming platform called Hulu, you might want to check it out. I don't know what the movie would have done in theaters, but it definitely made its way to my heart from the comfort of my couch. Did you guys happen to catch it, Jared and Julia?
No, I didn't. I thought it was a theatrical thing. I didn't know it was on streaming, so that's cool to know.
Yeah.
I for one actually did catch it. I loved it. Thought it was really good. My favorite Predator movie, hands down.
Awesome. And afterwards there's been a lot of talk about, where we'll get to see star Amber Mid-Thunder next. If you watch Legion, then you already know how great she is. But, if you missed it, go back and watch Legion. That also on Hulu. This sounds like Hulu Spawn Con, and it's not, because it's just the con without the spawn. That's weak. But yeah, people are saying, oh, maybe she could be in the Marvel universe, maybe she could be in a Star Wars. If you had to pick one, a Star Wars or Marvel, that could be a fun game that we can get into. Star Wars or Marvel? I'll start with you, Carlos.
I guess Marvel. I'd rather her be in Marvel than Star Wars.
Okay.
And the reasoning is I like Marvel stuff more than Star Wars stuff, and also eventually they share. Eventually, we're going to see all of them cross over. So
I'll concur with that.
Okay. What about you, Jared?
Marvel for the same reasons as Carlos. I prefer Marvel over Star Wars. I actually, when it was rumored that Echo was going to be in Hawkeye, was she
a fan cast?
Yeah, that's one that I heard a lot. But I think that she's not deaf. I think if they had went with Amber Mid-Thunder, it would have been a disservice to the character. And I loved the actress
Alakwa
Cox. Her name's escaping me.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, but I heard X-23 thrown around for Amber Mid-Thunder, and I think she's young enough, I think that would be pretty great.
Yeah, I mean, we here at the Racial Draft fully endorse the race bending aspect of her being cast as X-23. But as I tweeted today, if you're going to cast her as X-23, you also have to cast an Indigenous actor as Wolverine. So
Agreed.
no half measures, as another Mike would say. So yeah, I mean, I guess I'll be the lone outlier, and I'll say that I'd like to see her in a Star Wars. Because there's not a lot of Indigenous representation in the Star Wars universe. And, we've seen her in action sequences, both on Legion and in Prey. And, she can make a killer Jedi. So.
Yeah, there's not a ton of Native American Indigenous peoples, but there are New Zealand, Australian,
right. That's
Indigenous
the Maori.
there.
Yeah, that's true. But I think from a representation standpoint, they've done a lot. Obviously we'll probably talk a little bit about Andor, when that gets going, in terms of maybe them kicking up from perspective of Latinx representation in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, they definitely found the Latinx planet finally in the
galaxy.
Yeah, I mean, that's good to know.
It wasn't a planet that was destroyed by the Death Star. That's helpful. El Death Star as but no, I mean, listen, if that was the answer all along, that the diverse planets stayed out of the Star War, they were like, nah, we're good. You can handle that amongst yourself, white people.
Let these white people fight it out. We'll figure out who wins and work with them.
Although apparently not, because this is the other way you could look at it is that the earliest part of the revolution, of the rebellion, was brown people, and then eventually white people showed up and took it over.
I mean, well, for the longest time in Star Wars, it was like the closest thing you got to a Latino was Chewbacca. And
wait, was this early Latinx racial drafting?
I mean, his name was Chewie. His name is Chewie. It was the closest we got. And then you got Jimmy Smits.
That's true. That's true.
Right. And then but he didn't make it. He was the only one. And then now it's like every franchise now gets, we got Diego Luna, we got Pedro Pascal, we got Oscar Isaac. So
no, actually, you do raise up a good point, because based on what we saw in Obi-Wan, there were a fair amount of Latinos on Alderaan. So I you know what? El Death Star did actually did very Republican things, apparently. We are a political podcast. Yes, we are. But yeah, again, see Prey, and we'll keep things in the, well, no, we won't. We will push ahead to a different version of nerd news. We'll talk a little bit about Marvel-ish, our friends, she of the internet-based sex work business, is at it again, adding to her stable, as it were. Madam Web has added Josiah Mamet, who you might know from Girls, also from The Flight Attendant, which I have not seen. She will also be joining Madam Web in an undisclosed role, yet another in the many undisclosed people in that film. So far, we're looking at Dakota Johnson, Sydney Sweeney, Isabella Merced, Emma Roberts, Celeste O'Connor, Tahar Rahim, Mike Epps, and Adam Scott, all playing unnamed characters. I mean, at this point, we should probably take odds of when we will find out who these characters are going to be playing. What do you think, Carlos?
I think, does Sony have a game that they don't have their own D23 thing? So what could they potentially, if they've now let Comic-Con pass and C2E2 pass, when are they gonna, what is their big event that they're gonna release any information at all about this? Because it is insane that we know more about El Muerto than we do about Madam Web,
Yeah,
We don't know who anybody is playing.
I mean, it's coming out in October of 2023, so it is more than a year away. But would they really wait until like first trailer time to let us know who everyone's playing? They couldn't.
I mean, the
possibly
issue
do
that they're dealing with now is that the casting is public. We know who's cast, and we're all starting to kind of write, in our heads what this movie is. And if it's not that, we're all going to be disappointed, and it's impossible that it's going to be what all of us are individually thinking it is.
Although,
So
to be fair, we're generally disappointed by the Sony movies.
It's true
in the first place.
But like, Adam Scott gets cast. You're like, oh, he must be playing a Peter Parker. Well, there's like a 99% chance he's not playing Peter Parker.
Yeah.
But, if they let it hang out there long enough, we're all going to be like, wait, what is this movie when it finally comes out? Because right now, the working theory, at least on this podcast, is these are all different female Spider-Man characters.
From different universes.
Different universes. And, I'm willing to be wrong about that, but if they just keep this going without giving us any plot details, by the time they do, I'm going to be like, oh, I kind of wish they were different female Spider-Man characters from different universes, like I thought they were for the last 6 to 8 months.
So here's what we know. We know that the new Craven movie is coming out in January of 2023. Jared, do you think it's coming? Do you think we'll know details about this movie before or after the Craven movie comes out?
I'm banking on after, probably. I think if a trailer comes out before April 2023, I think that's when we'll find out. Like, the movie comes out in October.
Yes.
So we'll probably get that first trailer around April. If not, what's that con in April that they like released all that like their upcoming slate for this past April? What was that?
CinemaCon?
Yeah, I think that's when we'll find out. I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think, Julia? You think before or after January?
When is everything coming out again? I don't remember.
So it's coming out in October 6th, 2023 is Madam Web.
Well, maybe they might do something at the Brazil con. I forgot what it's CCXP, and that's December, I believe.
Okay. Now when
I on that.
Now they've pushed, like, there's nothing Spider-Verse happening this year, right? That's all but pushed back to next year.
Correct.
Okay. So yeah, I'm still thinking that's, what I'm thinking? I'm thinking something's gonna leak by New York Comic-Con in October of this year. And I think we'll at least find out like something about this movie in the fall. We might not find out who everyone's playing, but I think we'll find out at least whether it's Julia Carpenter or Cassandra Webb. Officially, not like we expect, because I'm still waiting for the Cassandra Webb casting. The Rita Moreno.
Right.
But listen, we love to speculate, and we're going to continue to speculate on what this movie is going to be until they let us know definitively what it is. So go on, Madam Web, with your bad self. Additional movie news: we got official confirmation about a movie called Joker Folie à Deux, the sequel to the Oh, there we go. Help us out, French speaker.
Not really.
Say it again.
I mean, not really. I took it through grade 12. I don't remember much of it, but I know how to, like, the words are usually pronounced when the letters are a certain way. So I kind of know that. Yeah.
Well,
you just have to sound like you're randomly falling into slow motion. It's like folie à deux.
All right. Well,
yeah, I guess.
Help us out one more time, Julia, just so I don't slip up.
I believe it's Folie à Deux.
Okay. So there we go. Joker Folie à Deux.
Wait, let's see. I'm going to see how it's written.
October 4th, 2024. That will be
it's like Folie, yeah, because it's not pronounced fall, because I thought it was Folle. It's it's Folie à Deux, but the last word is definitely deux, because that's the word for two in French.
Yes. I knew that much. From my one semester of French.
I knew it
but-
from the sequel to Hot Shots. Hot Shots Part 2. Remember that?
Exactly. So it's already been confirmed that our girl Lady Gaga is going to be in the movie, and that the movie will be taking place in Arkham Asylum, which does seem to confirm the rumors that it's going to be that it's going to involve Harley Quinn, and that it will potentially be a musical.
Isn't Lady Gaga supposed to be playing Harley Quinn?
Yeah, that's the rumor.
Yeah.
That is the rumor, but she has not confirmed that she's playing Harley Quinn. But everybody's connecting those dots. Jared, how do you feel about this Joker sequel and all of the rumors that are swirling around it?
I'm a sucker for musicals, so I happen to be really excited for this. I think it's going to be. I didn't love the first one, but I know at least with this one, with it being a musical and with I love Lady Gaga, so at least I know I will have a good time watching this. But I don't know how general audiences will feel about this, considering that musicals occupy like a certain niche kind of. So I feel like this might alienate some viewers.
See, the reason that I don't think it will is because it's got Lady Gaga in it.
True.
And it seems weird because this movie seems to be attracting like a totally different demographic than the first one.
Yes.
Which is really weird. And the first one did like really well, but I mean, like, I guess that's how you followed up, do something totally different. It was totally off the wall, the first one, I guess.
Right.
So.
And I think that here's how I feel from like a business perspective. I think that everyone who saw the first movie and liked the first movie is coming back. Even though it might be a complete left turn from the first movie. And I think that there are people for whom the first movie didn't seem very attractive. But if the trailer is bombastic and musical and, you know, again, a complete left turn from the last one, I think there will be an audience of new people who will give it a try, especially if you don't have to have seen the first movie to enjoy this movie. And I think that, you know, from a like comic book fan perspective, it's the Joker. It doesn't actually have to make sense logically because he's crazy, you know? It doesn't even have to be canon, you know, whatever that's supposed to mean. I think they have a tremendous amount of flexibility. I don't know what the budget on this movie is going to be, you know, but the first movie had like a $55 million budget and grossed $1.07 billion. More on that later as we talk about Warner Brothers and their approach to filmmaking. But I mean, I could totally imagine a movie with a slightly higher budget, but with that same kind of aspiration. And you know, we know that on a certain level, Joaquin Phoenix can sing because he did the Johnny Cash movie. We definitely know that Lady Gaga can sing, and you know, there are a whole bunch of different places they could take this movie that could make it more fun than the original, and it's for that reason that I think it has the potential to make just as much, if not more, than the first Joker movie. What do you guys think?
Okay.
Yeah,
Carlos, I know you're generally speaking not a fan of the first Joker movie. So what is your perspective?
I aggressively hate the first Joker movie. And I don't hate many movies, but that was one where it's like, I wish I could walk out of this. I was literally like being paid to talk about it like on a Patreon podcast at the time. It's like, I'm sitting through this because I'm making $100 to be here. But I would have walked out otherwise. I really, really did not like that movie. Now, the second one being a musical and having Lady Gaga, like, it's interesting. I'm interested. I don't know. I need to see more of it, like, you know, trailers or whatever, before I decide if I'm going to pay money to see it. I will eventually see the movie. Will I give money to see the movie is the question. And will I need to feel the need to rush out to see it? I don't know that I will.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I think you fit within the demographic of people that the idea of it being a left turn from the previous one that the people who saw I mean, again, not a large audience, but still the people who saw the first movie and were turned off by the first movie or didn't even see the first movie get the opportunity to see something totally different. And that's going to probably attract them if the trailer's good, if the buzz is good, if all of the other, the technical aspects of the filmmaking are good. People are going to be more apt to give this a shot. And I still think that all the people who like the first one are going to give it a shot, even if it doesn't end up ultimately being their cup of tea.
Yeah. And from like a technical standpoint, like Todd Phillips knows how to make a movie. Like it's a beautiful movie to look at. I just thought the content was particularly irresponsible, I thought. But ironically, if the whole movie is set at Arkham, probably the number one thing I liked about the first Joker was his Gotham. So if the whole thing is devoid of Gotham, it's going to be kind of a bummer for me because I really enjoyed his, like, I had never seen Gotham like that.
I mean, all you have to do is go watch a 1970s Scorsese movie.
Yes, clearly.
No, yeah. you saw that. You've seen that Gotham on screen, guys.
When I saw that Gotham, it was called New York City.
Yes, it was called Taxi Driver.
Yeah, right.
So just go ahead. It's all there for you. It's right there. So yeah, speaking of Gotham, I suppose now's a good enough time to talk about.
Do it.
No, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. We're going to tease you. We're going to tease you, listeners. You know what we're here for. We're going to talk about some rumors. We're going to talk about some Marvel, because we have not talked about Marvel yet. And this is just a rumor. It's not an actual fact, but it does fall within our racial draft purview. So I think we should talk about it. Giancarlo Esposito. Ever heard of him? I hope you have. He has been in a lot of stuff, and he's been rumored for a little bit for a Marvel role. He was at Celebrity Fan Fest this weekend in San Antonio, and he gave a pretty spirited speech, and he talked about the fact that he has been in discussions with Marvel, but he is also said that nothing's set in stone as far as the characters that he's potentially going to play. But in terms of different characters that have come up in discussions that he might potentially play, the character that he would most like to play is Charles Xavier, Professor X. And, some outlets talked about it. Julia, did you get to write on it?
No, but I saw an interesting tweet on this matter.
Okay.
Which is like, I don't know if y'all agree with it, but since this is the racial draft podcast, I figure
we got to talk about it.
So people are like, some people are like, I gotta find the tweet, I don't know what it is, but they're like, Charles Xavier's character like changes a lot, doesn't work if he's not white, because they basically defended him by saying like he's a white savior and that's why he needs to be white.
So it's funny that you mentioned that. I mean, and it's a shame that Randy's not here, because back last season, he drafted Charles Xavier for the Black delegation, and we kind of went back and forth about it, and we were able to sort of make it work from the perspective that most of the time Charles Xavier's naivete about mutants relationship to non-mutants does come from a place of privilege, does come from a place of like, he grew up with a lot of wealth, and his only quote unquote handicap, as at that point in time, was that he was a mutant, but no one could tell, no one could see it. And he comes into contact with Magneto, who had decidedly different experience. And, part of their story is that Professor X sees the good in people and thinks that, if mutants can just kind of not scare humanity, then things will be fine. Whereas Magneto was like, I don't know, guys. I feel like it doesn't take much for people to turn into Nazis. However, where Randy and I were able to sort of agree is that as a Black person, especially a Black person above a certain age, the concept of respectability politics is not a foreign concept. Like the concept of, if you are kind of well behaved and you don't get into trouble and you don't scare white people or whatever the dominant group is, if you show them that you're like a good person and not trying to like stir things up and cause a ruckus, a lot of older Black people do believe that that things will be better for you. And they also do think that if you are trying to be overly radical and if you are trying to shake things up too much, then you bring on you yourself are causing a lot of the pushback, a lot of the negativity. So there's still a place in my mind, and I think I would agree, not speaking totally for Randy, but in Randy's mind, that there is a place for a Black Charles Xavier who might subscribe to that idea that as mutants they have a responsibility to show the world the best possible face of what mutants could be, and that could be basically be a blind spot for Charles Xavier, that he thinks that he could sort of role model his way out of oppression. Jarrett, I'd love to hear your perspective on both like Charles Xavier and Magneto, particularly, as a Jewish American.
Well, I do like, I mean, Giancarlo Esposito is incredible in everything that he's in. For MCU, once Charles Xavier is integrated into the MCU, I am hoping that in an effort to kind of distance this portrayal from other portrayals, that they will try and lean into the more unsavory aspects of Charles Xavier, because if there's one word that could be used to describe Charles Xavier, it is a jerk. Kitty Pryde really puts it so well. There's like the idea that, if someone's running for president, there's kind of like a level of ego to that.
Sure.
The fact that they think that they are the perfect person to be in charge of an entire nation. And that's kind of what Charles Xavier does. He puts himself at the forefront of...
I mean, it is the X-Men, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's his, named after him. Go on.
Yeah. But there's also like the whole Charles, Magneto, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X argument, that they both represent those figureheads' ideals. And I do think Giancarlo Esposito, the man's like 60, almost 70.
Yeah, I want to say he's 64, but let me look it up.
Yeah. I do he is a little bit old, in my opinion.
Yeah, he's 64.
Yeah, I would prefer Charles Xavier, who is a bit younger, as someone who doesn't want it to be like, the X-Men were always around and hiding in the shadows, like I'd like to see in the MCU the formation of the X-Men.
So you'd rather actually see the formation of the X-Men? Yes,
I would.
Okay.
So
I mean, I gotta ask you then, if you like, where does Magneto as a Holocaust survivor fit in that timeline?
So I believe I've been I know this is silly. I've been pretty vocal on wanting to keep Magneto as a Holocaust survivor. And if they don't, I will be fully deterred from,
but the math on that.
Yes.
Jared.
Yes, obviously. I mean, but that's the thing. Like, why can't one of, like, we believe in mutants as people, that's a fantastical concept. Why can't we just say Magneto, being the master of magnetism, was able to, I don't know, control the iron in his blood, being able to keep himself young? Or no, I
mean, here's the thing. We can do that, but here's the problem. If Magneto is, let's be charitable, right? So let's say he was 10 in the 1940s. It is 80 years later.
Yeah.
He's 90 years old, right?
Mhm.
If he befriended Charles Xavier, like what age was he when he befriended Charles Xavier to where that's like completely appropriate friendship, you know?
That's true. However, I mean, I don't think it's so out of the realm of possibility for them to just say either like mutants or certain mutant, maybe like say Magneto's like an Omega level mutant, and
Okay.
that Omega level mutants age slower.
Sure.
What about Mystique? Like, what are you gonna do with Mystique?
Oh no, Mystique's clearly over 100 years old. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just a given, right? No, but what
So-
I'm
but why
saying is
can't-
specifically, I'm saying specifically when it comes to Magneto and Charles, if they're not peers in any way, like not even close to being peers,
Yeah.
then that definitely alters their dynamic. You know, if
Truly, yeah.
if Charles is like 35 and Magneto is 95, like when would they ever have struck up a
So
friendship?
I think you can still have it in a way that it works where Magneto befriends Charles Xavier at a point in his life where he has become more radicalized. And that after, so it's interesting because you got a Magneto who's not only lived through the Holocaust, but he's lived through apartheid. He's lived through everything like everything that's gone on in China. Like you got a Magneto that has seen so much shit and has truly become radical. Like you have literally yin and yang at this point. You have the older Magneto who's seen much more, and then the young naive Charles Xavier.
Got it.
You know,
so in your mind, his naivete comes from youth rather than from the intergeneration. I'm sorry, the previous generation, the boomer, if you will, you know, generation, where it's like, hey guys, we did stuff in the 60s, like we made the world a better place, we could do it again, you know, with the mutants. Like that's why I like the idea of a 60-year-old Charles Xavier, because he would still have that like hippie style about him, right? He would still have that idea that like, yes, I totally understand that there were Nazis, right? And they did messed up things, but like the world's better now. And all we have to do is be better and better outcomes. Whereas I think, you know, not to speak too much for millennials, but like, I think that millennials are a little bit more cynical. You know, I think the millennials are a little bit less naive when it comes to, you know, human nature and the last 100 years of civilization. Like, I think that boomers are in that sweet spot of like, where like they're both naive, but like still co-opted potentially, you know, where they make bad decisions because they're the establishment.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and I'm totally like, I just think it's a take, and it's by no means a bad take. It's just not really like I'm kind of looking for them to like, what's the word? Kind of reinvent the relationship, because we have, you know, that's kind of what it was like more so in the comics with, you know, since the original X-Men was written back in the 60s.
Yeah, no, I get that part.
Yeah. Also, just a little bit of headcanon. I always saw Magneto's Brotherhood of Mutants as sort of like a freedom fighters that he's kind of built over the course of his being alive for like 90 years.
Yeah, I mean, we've definitely talked about this on the show, you know, and I'd love to, you know, get both Carlos and Julia's perspective on this. But like one of the things that I've really been a strong advocate for is, I don't know if you guys remember how like in Ms. Marvel, the show, the Disney Plus show, you had that character who was talking about like, this is what happens when the wrong people get superpowers, you know, like, and it had the double entendre to that. Like, one of the things that I've been a strong advocate for is more people of color as mutants, because of the idea that the wrong people having superpowers is a big part of why there's so much animosity towards mutants, that they're not people who come from traditionally places that we hold in high esteem. They come from these, perhaps these communities that are downtrodden, these countries that are downtrodden, that are not normally thought of as quote unquote the third world, and that because they're not traditionally tied to privilege, these superpowers are viewed as more disruptive to the status quo, and they're viewed as more problematic to the powers that be. And that's why countries are more apt to tamp down, because if these were the people who were already in positions of power and authority, if they got superpowers, then it would just be another way of reinforcing existing power dynamics. But because you have people not in those roles getting powers, that's inherently something that they want to hold back and something that they want to stamp out. So that to me, that ties into the idea of the Brotherhood, being something that Magneto would like to put together to like you said, freedom fighters, like trying to change the status quo of the world, because these are largely brown and black people, who have superpowers that the world doesn't really know what to do with. What do you think, Carlos?
I think that Magneto has to be a Holocaust survivor, and I don't know. I have not figured out a way to sufficiently circle that square in terms of the timeline, other than setting the film in the past, like First Class or something, because of the Xavier of it. Like, are they, or unless they're not lifelong friends, unless they haven't been corresponding for decades. But that takes something away, because Magneto and Charles's friendship is one of the probably the best things about the X-Men universe.
Well, my idea way back, my idea was that, like, he just straight up, Magneto straight up just got experimented on by the Nazis, and then after the Nazis by Hydra, and that he spent like all of his, like, he spent like the next 30-40 years like just being experimented on, because he didn't age during that time period when he
sorry, actually I have a question. Remember Dum Dum Dugan? He was experiment. What was that? The serum? Was it like an
the Infinity Serum? Yeah,
they could do that.
True, they could. I mean, what they could also do is they could just, like I said, like we know that in the MCU, for instance, that they had like the Winter Soldier, where they would like put him on suspended animation and then send him on missions, but he never really aged significantly over the course of 50 years. Like, I was thinking something along that line, where Magneto was acquired by Hydra, and a lot of the anti-mutant technology was grafted from Magneto. And then by the time he becomes free, either you could do it one of two ways. You could either have it where he doesn't remember what happened to him, not as great, or you have it where he completely remembers what happens to him, but like for a certain amount of time, Professor X is basically able to talk him down of like going full radical, and that's when they have their friendship. He like gives him a chance. He gives Xavier a chance to prove him wrong, and then immediately, not even immediately, 5 years, let's give it, like where he's like, all right, let's try it your way, and then we realize very quickly that in Magneto's eyes, Xavier's way is never going to work, and then that's when they have their split. So then you still have them having a friendship, and you could still have them be like age-wise, like not too far apart because of the whole suspended animation thing. So like Magneto appears as a 60-something-year-old man, even though he's actually 90 years old. And then Professor X is also 60-something years old. And, you could still have that dynamic of the last 20 years, they've been like frenemies. But yeah, ultimately, in order for any of that to work, the mutants have to have existed for a significant amount of time. And I'm just a big believer that you can't do the mutants if they haven't existed for at least a generation.
I guess, like, MCU at all, if they're going to be people who have been here the whole time, then I don't even know why I'm overthinking this. It'll just be a flashback to a concentration camp. Oh, look, it's Johann Schmidt, and he's testing super soldier serums on different people, and it kills everyone except for Magneto because he's a mutant, and then Johann Schmidt says something like, "Oh, that's very interesting," and they never, he never follows through because he gets, tesseracted out of there. As far as the Giancarlo Esposito as Professor X, like, it's not because I can't believe him as a good guy, but I just don't see him as professor. Like, I've never seen him as like nurturing.
So here's a question. Wait, and this is why I want to push back. Have you watched Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so Gus Fring, in his like Gus Fring,
Pollos Hermanos,
Gus Fring. You're not saying you don't think that guy is?
I actually think that's a great point. So as the supervisor of Pollos Hermanos, Gus Fring he's a great boss. He's whatever, encouraging, but there's always something stilted about him. Like, it's never an emotional connection with his staff. Surely he's trained them well and they're really good employees, and they would probably run through a brick wall for him, but you wouldn't call it like a paternal relationship at all,
Sure. But maybe that's just the tiny element that goes to Jared's point about Professor X being a jerk, that it's kind of like remember, these are little kids. Yeah. Sure. He's the like headmaster of this school, and he's training them to fight his war. You know what I mean?
If it's ever felt like, if you've ever been a person who's like, it's completely irrational that Batman would have a Robin, you can't then support Professor X. You just can't. I've always thought Giancarlo Esposito would be great, because the thing I love the most about him is I think he's just got this really elegant voice. And I just think him as the voice of Beast would be awesome. I would love Giancarlo Esposito as the voice of Hank McCoy.
I wouldn't hate that. I've got to be honest. Julia, I would love to hear your perspective on any of the things that we've talked about regarding the X-Men before you fall asleep. That you're like.
Yeah, well, I'm fading fast, but yeah, what you guys said, like a lot of what you guys said makes sense. Like, I don't know that much with it. I've only seen one X-Men movie, and it was
Which one was it?
Yeah, but I want to watch the animated series. I feel like I like that. But yeah, I heard the second X-Men's good, so I'll watch that. There's some other ones that are interesting to me, like, so I want to watch those. But yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. It's another thing where it's like, well, if they're here the whole time, how do they justify that? So when they into MCU anyway. So there's that. And then the Magneto thing, yeah, it's weird if he's not a Holocaust survivor, but then again, the age thing. So like, yeah, a lot of you guys have been making good points. So yeah, I'm just gonna let y'all take. But yeah, I just thought it was interesting to bring up, well, what the guy said on Twitter about, or the person said on Twitter about, Professor X and the racial issue.
Needing to be a white savior.
Yeah. No, basically, I saw it.
That's how I read it. Maybe I read that wrong. I'm sorry, but that's how it seemed to me.
No, I mean, I've seen several tweets in that vein, and again, if they did make Professor X a white guy, I would buy it, because a lot of it makes sense from the perspective of, it's like I have exactly one axis of oppression, like every in every other way I live a particularly privileged life, and there's just one thing that, like, I point to that makes me an oppressed person. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I agree with you though on that. It's a lot of the other mutants should be people of color, because for that factor, like, 'cause it's an allegory, of course, right?
Yeah.
And I'm also wondering maybe because like I've seen people compare this to some of the mutants are like gay and stuff because
Hmm.
comparing that to like the homosexuality thing of
Yeah.
yeah, like of of that kind of oppression. So I think maybe making some of them gay as well might be good. I don't know. See, I'm kind of rambling here.
No, I think both of those things can be true. But the problem with it as only an allegory for sexuality, is that those are still things that the sort of prevailing society can't see, you know.
I know
Whereas,
that's the problem, but like I think both. That's why I think both should be there.
yeah, I agree. And I think that, yeah, like I said, I'm a proponent of both, but I definitely think that, especially because it is an allegory, like one of the issues with race is that people are resistant to the idea of certain communities reproducing, because of the numbers. Like, there's this whole thing called the replacement theory with white supremacy, the idea that like the number of white people is diminishing and the number of these other non-white races are growing, that like that is very direct parallel with what a lot of the anti-mutant groups, both in modern comics and in other generations, are afraid of with respect to the mutants. That it's like the non-mutant human population will be eventually replaced by mutants, and that they need to get rid of the mutants to stop that from happening. So I think that that's like a direct parallel that can be easily applied to mutant storytelling in the MCU, when you have like your sort of like white supremacist group that's saying, oh, we need to make sure that they're not reproducing in high enough numbers to replace us as the dominant strain of humanity. But
I
listen,
just wanted to point out, you said that Charles Xavier, as a white man, has one axis of oppression, but he is also in a wheelchair.
yes, but the wheelchair came later. He was not in a wheelchair for his entire life.
Sure. But as soon as he's in that wheelchair, his life is going to be different.
Fair point.
Yeah.
Totally. But and then you're right. We definitely meet Charles in a wheelchair, but they make it quite clear that like he was in a wheelchair, like he was put in the wheelchair, like he didn't grow up as a disabled person.
Yeah.
That's
a whole other thing to unpack, because I do feel like it's inherently like ableist stance to make it that he was not always this way, because it makes it like more tragic if he was once able to walk and now he can't walk. It's always how that's played to me, is like this happened to him rather than he was born this way. And like I said, it's a whole other thing to unpack that I am ill-equipped for.
I totally agree. None of us on this podcast are equipped to handle it. But I also think that in terms of given the way that the Charles Xavier character, and actually, I mean, currently, Charles Xavier's walking around.
Yes.
In the comics. So they got that shit up out of there. And
there were a lot of people who were like, hey, what's going on? He was in a wheelchair, and I used to be able to identify with that as someone in a wheelchair, and now
I didn't gone. Actually, you know what? I didn't know about that. That's I mean, I think that in a way, because I never associate, I mean, no, this is a this is a hard line for me to walk. Like because we know that he was in a wheelchair as an adult, it was sort of like a thing that was added to his character more so than something that that guided him and informed his character, is what I really want to say. You know what I mean? Like, I do think that if he was someone who had spent his entire life disabled, we look at Charles Xavier differently. The stories consistently like bring up the fact that when he's given the opportunity to walk around, like he's doing that, you know, like when he's using his mental abilities to be on the astral plane, like he's walking around, you know, like he's, you know what I mean, like
Yeah, when he's
like,
fighting Farouk, he's not in a wheelchair.
yeah, like he himself doesn't identify with the wheelchair as part of his identity. He himself, as how the character's written, looks at the wheelchair as a thing that's holding him back. And because those are how the stories are written, and maybe, and again, maybe that's ableist, right? But because that's how the stories are written with respect to the character, the him being in the wheelchair is not as essential to his character as, you know, as another example would be someone like Oracle, who, although she was injured and put into a wheelchair, she was like, her journey was accepting and being not accept, you know, was being herself while being in the wheelchair, and not looking at the wheelchair as a quote unquote handicap. Whereas I feel like with Charles, being in the wheelchair was viewed as a handicap.
It's interesting.
Thus,
It's interesting because I don't like, aside from maybe X-Men Days of Future Past, the movies have never really touched upon this and have made this like a focal point. Like while you were talking,
well, First Class, right? I mean, First Class, he's walking around and then he gets shot and then he's like, you know, he's paralyzed.
Yeah, but they never unpack that. Yeah, I remember the extent of that is him lying on the floor saying, I can't feel my legs. I can't feel my legs. I can't feel my legs, over and over again.
Yeah.
As someone who this issue kind of hits a little closer to home, I never really understood either in the comics why this was something that was it felt like a little tacked on to his character.
Yes, I agree with that.
I never understood why, like, what's the point of putting him in the wheelchair if you're not really going to explore that and not have that really mean something to his character? Because
so I have a theory.
Yeah.
And I would probably need to do research, but this is a theory that like I've been sort of holding on to. Like, I know that the X-Men in a lot of ways was a response to Doom Patrol.
Yeah.
And in Doom Patrol, I forgot the character's name, is also in a wheelchair.
It's Timothy, I'm trying to remember his name. Chief? Is that it?
I need to look it up, guys.
Yeah.
Don't put me on the spot. But like I think there's a little bit of Marvel sort of like stealing the aesthetic of Doom Patrol and saying, well, their guy was in a wheelchair, so our guy's got to be in a wheelchair too. But
Niles Calder. And I don't know a lot about Niles Calder, but I would imagine they've probably written more stories about him in the wheelchair than, yeah, he was also called the Chief. So you're right, Jared. But yeah, that's my theory. My theory is that they put their guy in the wheelchair because DC had a guy in a wheelchair.
And he was, all that to be said, I think it's worth exploring in the upcoming MCU mutant projects, whatever they choose to do. I think they should go into it.
So you think that they should explore the sort of the ramifications of Charles Xavier as a disabled individual? I
think either they should or they shouldn't, because they're like, on the one hand, you know, it's important, but on the other hand, they may fuck it up, and I hope that they won't. So it might just be best to steer clear of that. But I also think, like, as sort of like a representation sort of thing, and just, you know, I think they should.
All right. Well, we will table that, because we will have more than enough opportunities to talk about Marvel's take on the X-Men. But we have to move on to the main event of the nerd news discussion, and that involves Warner Brothers, DC in particular, and very specifically our friends in the Batgirl universe. Yeah, we heard this week that Batgirl is not happening. It's not coming out in the theaters. It's not coming out on streaming. It's not. It's just not a thing anymore. The 70 million that became a $90 million exploration of Barbara Gordon in the DCEU is no more. There are a lot of reasons for that, and we'll definitely get into it. But I'm gonna go around and ask like what you guys' first takes were when you heard the news. Julia, we'll start with you.
Well, I don't know. I was hoping it was a lie or like a fake thing to freak everybody out. And then it was obvious it was true, and then I I'm mostly thinking then and now, like, why would anyone sign on to a WB project unless it's like some huge guaranteed blockbuster thing now? Why would they sign it? Because people they can just decide to eat the cost and get tax break, I guess. I don't know exactly how it works.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they can do that. So it's like, why would you do that? But also I hope that this and the Scoob thing that just got scored because it got paid for even though it's not coming out.
Mm-hmm.
I want them to be released. I want if they have to leak them, and I hope everyone involved gets justice.
All right. What about you, Jared? What was your take when you heard the news?
I remember seeing like the original article.
That was like a New York Post story, right?
Yeah, I didn't buy it. Like I was like, there's no way they must have misheard something and then when it started catching on, like I was just stunned. I mean, how par for the course of Warner, like so it does feel like typical, but like we've never seen this before. Like I can't think of anything similar to this that has ever happened.
Happened twice, actually. So it's happened once in 1927 and once 2017 to a Kevin Spacey movie, and that's it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wasn't alive in 1927. I don't think any of you guys were alive in 1927.
I am a mutant, and I'm sorry, I was actually alive in 1927.
This is news to me. Yeah, the Kevin Spacey, I guess, makes sense.
Sure.
Because he is Kevin Spacey, but like, this is just this is like, we will look back on this in like history. This will be told in history books. Like,
so I want to get Carlos's take, and then I'm going to give my take. When you heard the news, what was your take, Carlos?
When I realized the news was real, because again, New York Post, I was like, but then other stories came out quickly, and they weren't citing the New York Post stories. So I was like, okay, this is out there. And it just seemed, my first reaction was like, this is insane. Like, this is wild. The movie was done. It was, all done, but the releasing of it and the fact that it wasn't even going to get put out onto HBO Max. It's like, you're just throwing away $90 million. And then the tax write-off stories came out within a couple hours, maybe, or the next day or something. It made a little more sense, but initial reaction was like, this is bananas, and I can't believe this is like a real story.
Yeah, so my first perspective on it was to actually believe it. Now, I didn't necessarily believe the part about it being a bad movie as much as I believe the part about I'd been reading a lot over the last few months about like David Zaslav being like hardcore about wanting to cut costs and not being a believer in movies on streaming. So when I heard that they didn't believe in it as a theatrical release and that they could potentially write it off, I was like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. That if they could get a write-off on this movie that they don't want to release in the theaters, especially after they had the whole debacle with the Snyder cut, and spending a bunch of money on that movie to put it on streaming and to have it really do nothing on streaming. Like I looked at, everything that the new regime was talking about. I looked at it as an opportunity to kind of shit on the previous regime, to basically say that these were projects that they would not have approved of, and that they could basically say, it was a one-time thing. All these projects that had been approved by the previous regime, they had no loyalty to, and they had no reason to support if they weren't going to make money for the studio. And if they were only going to be released on streaming, then they weren't going to make money for the studio. Because again, they don't believe in HBO Max the way that Jason Kilar and the previous regime believes in HBO Max, or believed in HBO Max. They want to make money. And, we talked about this earlier, like with a movie like Top Gun Maverick making however many billions of dollars, $1.5 billion in the theaters, it refutes the notion that streaming is the future. And it goes back to the old thinking, which is that we can put a movie out and make 500, 600, however many, millions of dollars on our IP. And we're not just giving stuff away. Now, granted, we talked about this before with respect to the Flash movie, that, if movies were going to be tied to that, that put Batgirl in an even tougher spot, because that movie can't come out until the Flash movie comes out, which we all know may never come out. But even if we assume that movie is coming out, it's not coming out until June, right? So at that point, the question is, were they going to hold this movie? Were they going to, put more money into this movie, where they already didn't necessarily believe in it? I totally could believe that they would shelve this movie right now if they could write it off and then say, this was not our mistake. This was the previous regime's mistake. Don't worry, when we get our thing going, when we start our real, our version, the David Zaslav version of the DCEU, it's all going to be great. It's all going to be good. It's all moving towards this 10-year plan. We'll talk about that later, but we're going to get our Kevin Feige in there, and we're going to lay out what our plan is for DC. And they just didn't believe in this movie as part of their long-term plan. Was I upset about it? For sure. But I also thought that, yeah, of course they did that. Of course, if they could save money on a movie and not have it blow back on them as their failure, they would do that. But like we know, it did kind of blow back on them. It's been a tough week. People have been talking about it. People have been speculating about whether Warner Brothers Discovery does have a plan. We should probably talk about this other story that involves Walter Hamada, who is head of DC Films, and he was almost going to walk over this decision. Good on him, standing up for his people, standing up for his projects. Do you guys have any thoughts about the Walter Hamada story that we heard about, that he was potentially going to leave over the decision?
No, because he didn't.
Okay.
But I would say that it's not so much. I mean, yes, it's huge news that they canceled a completed Batman adjacent film. Obviously it's huge. It doesn't happen unless you're in the year 1927, or your star is Kevin Spacey. So it's huge news that this happened, but the way that they handled it was like borderline sociopathic. Like it was just like, and we're canceling this movie. No apologies to anyone. Like, we're so sorry. Or when we do have a Batgirl, Leslie Grace is still our Batgirl. Something, anything like that. It's like they didn't acknowledge the work put in, and in the hopes of the fans who were waiting for it, and any of that. They were just like, no, we didn't like the movie, and we can get a tax write-off. So deuces. It just seems very cold and corporate. And I get that it is. I understand that it's show business, but you got to at least pay some sort of not a tribute, but you got to pay some respect to the fact that there were human beings who made this movie, and that there was a lot of work put in, and especially if they were that close to the finish line as supposedly they were, like on post-production.
Yeah, I mean, so this is, to me, this is more of a I think that they thought that they could just kind of quietly shelve the movie because they don't understand how the internet works.
I mean, they didn't understand that there was a Batman in their movie.
No, right. No, but remember, this is a company that constantly announces movies and then never puts those movies out.
So that they don't make the movies that they don't put out. They just announce them. And then we all go, ha, ha, ha. Yes, I'm sure the movie with the black director is totally going to get made. And then it never gets made. I mean, we've laughed about it on this show, all the time.
Right. So what I'm saying is that, if they thought that they could just not come out with the movie quietly, pay everybody, and then, just kind of keep it moving. I don't think they were prepared for all of the trades and all of the scoopers and everyone in nerd geek culture basically being like, Batgirl's been canceled. I think they were just kind of like, it was just going, we're just gonna quietly push this movie to the side, and then that's just not how it went down. And then they had to put out a statement, because I don't think they planned to put out a statement. I think that they were just going to just quietly take it off the slate, just quietly not release it. And then they had to put out a statement. And, look, their statement goes, this is the statement, official. The decision to not release Batgirl reflects our leadership's strategic shift as it relates to DC Universe and HBO Max. There was more to it. Sorry. I think they also said that it does not reflect their, yes, here we go. Leslie Grace is an incredibly talented actor, and this decision is not a reflection of her performance. We are incredibly grateful to the filmmakers of Batgirl and Scoob Holiday Haunt and the respective cast, and we hope to collaborate with everyone again in the near future. That is that's the kind of statement you put out generally, corporate-ish, to save face. But that's not the statement you put out when you're trying to get out in front of the story. That's a statement you put out when you're like, oh, this is what people are saying.
Especially when it comes out that no one on the movie knew.
Right.
They were also blindsided. It was bad form all the way around.
For sure.
And you can chalk it up to rookie mistakes, I guess. This is their first foray into this realm of entertainment, but it was really poorly handled. And then and we haven't even gotten to the part where this is the Afro-Latina Batgirl. We haven't even gotten to the representation of it. It's this, the poor handling of this, not even, this unborn movie franchise. Mm-hmm. But we haven't even gotten to the part where it's and also you had a movie with a Black Latinx female lead that you're just going to, that you were doing away with in a way that is almost entirely unprecedented in the history of Hollywood. it's just especially when you still have your Ezra Miller Flash film that you're just like not canceling, or if you are canceling, you haven't addressed it yet.
Yeah.
And if they thought that movie was going to get, that they were going to be able to cancel this movie quietly, why are you doing it within a week of Comic-Con? Like you're doing it when the industry is at its rolling boil at this point. You know, like news is coming through all the time. You weren't going to be able to sneak this out. You know, like it just seemed it was just the worst possible handling of this situation.
Yeah. No, I hear that. I mean, and the thing is, like, what we know now from, you know, having, you know, I'm the person that sat through their investor call and you know, watched the presentation and saw that they're basically every bad decision in their mind that the previous regime made, they talked about it on the call as, you know, not something that they stand behind, and that they want to unshackle themselves from the previous decisions. They've got, I want to say, somewhere in the neighborhood of $49 billion that they're trying to take off the books in terms of losses, in terms of debt. They have promised, I think, $3 billion by the end of the year. Like they're trying to show their investors that they're more frugal, that, you know, that they know what they're doing with their budgets, and ultimately I think their strategies kind of tied to that. That they're, you know, they're willing to spend 30 million or less on movies for the streaming platform, but they're not willing to spend 90 million, 100 million, however many, for movies on a streaming platform. And that's what Batgirl was.
I mean, like the thing is, from the business, I get it. I get all of it, except for the part where, like, I understand you're not willing to spend your 90 million, but it's spent. Like, it's already spent. It was factored in when you bought Warner Brothers. Like, it was already done. It's like, how much money are they making from writing it down?
I think they said somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 billion. Sorry, 25 million. Sorry.
I was like, 25 billion. Never mind. You can cancel all of it. I don't care. You fire every Hispanic in the building. I don't care. 25 billion.
Yeah. No, right. Because the argument is that when you take a write-off, I mean, you know this, when you take a write-off, you can't attempt to monetize it in any way. Right. So their choices were put it on and then try to make some money on it. Which, I mean, how do you get money on it? Like, you have to have new subscribers, like specifically for this movie, right? Or you put it in the theaters, which means spending probably another 20 to 30 million dollars, not counting the marketing costs, which again, they were already over budget. Or you just say, you know what, $25 million in my pocket, we never put it out. And the other side of it, which is, you know, I think we have talked about this last week, you know, there's the Ben Affleck of it all. Apparently, one of the, like, putting aside the quality of the movie, there was some confusion because of the fact that The Flash has not come out, about this, like, why is Michael Keaton in this movie? Like, what is his role going forward? If they're thinking that, you know, maybe we're not using Michael Keaton as our long-term Batman in our movies, maybe one and done is fine. You know, we can have him in the Flash movie, and, you know, we could have the nostalgia hit from that, but he's not going to be part of our long-term plans. Well, now you're in the position where you have to figure out, like, all right, well, do we have to do reshoots to put Ben Affleck in this movie?
Right.
You know, like, so if it becomes a movie that's just kind of in its own world, where it's not part of the future plans and it's not building towards anything,
Yeah.
that puts it in an even tougher spot, you know. And again, look, we talk about this now. My hope is that Leslie Grace, the filmmakers, everyone involved in this production is not out of a job, that they will make things right with them, and they will put them in future projects, and they will be a part of the future plans for this franchise. But if putting the movie out makes that less likely, now it's a different argument.
My hope is that Leslie Grace crosses the street and is Eva Ayala in the MCU. Let's go.
I mean, even though she's Dominican, you're cool with the Dominican
I am
Puerto Rican
cool
hero?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
All right. Well, I would love to hear Julie and Jared's thoughts on this, because I feel like we monopolized the discussion a little bit. Jared, Julia, feel free to hop in with your thoughts. Julia, you're on mute. Julia?
Hi.
What do you think?
Yeah, what you're saying made sense. I feel like maybe I'm not as savvy when the business side of this as sometimes I think I am. So I don't know. I mean, I look on the box office subreddit all the time, so I guess I must be an expert, but like, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I'm just disappointed.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely okay to be disappointed. I'm disappointed as well. It's just I feel like it's just tough, because like we want to see these projects, but then when the projects don't live up to our expectations, people are brutal. And I think that, like, on the off chance, like if we accept the possibility that the movie wasn't up to like cinematic standards, like I don't want that either, like I don't want the movie to come out, like for them to just throw it out there, spend no more money, do no more reshoots, do like, put like one of the things that happens in these screenings is that the people who screen the movie say what they like or what they don't like, and then they go back and they try to like tighten up the movie on reshoots. But if the studio said that they didn't want to do that, go ahead. Sorry.
I've been hearing from what I heard at about test screenings for this one, everyone thought it was at least okay.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like the movies are okay. The movies can be okay.
Liked it a lot. Some people thought it was okay, and like, yeah, that's a lot of the. I don't know, but like, I feel like it's that better than some of the other DC ones. But if they're really, I don't know, if they actually revolutionize DC from here, then maybe I can understand it. But like, I don't know if they're actually going to do that, or it's going to be half-assed measures, and like, we'll see.
Right. Yeah, but all I was trying to say is that like the movies, like I know some people had said that like It, for instance, like it scored similarly to It, and it scored similarly to Black Adam, but both of those movies after the screenings got periods of reshoots to like improve on screenings. If the studio didn't want to put any more money into the movies, then they're going to put it out the way that it is now. And even the filmmakers were saying that they were in post-production, that they were working on the movie, that it wasn't close to being finished. So all of that we know from the Snyder Cut stuff, that like that costs more money to pay for more work on the movie, whether it's visual effects, whether it's reshoots, whether it's redubs. Like I wouldn't want them to put out like a half-assed product just to say that we got to see it. So if they're not going to spend to bring it up to the par, like I don't want Leslie Grace to be like, thought of as like, oh, she was bad in the role because the movie, didn't do all that it was supposed to do. I'd rather Leslie Grace get another opportunity to be Batgirl on another project and like put her best foot forward. What do you think, Jared?
I truly cannot pass judgment on like the quality of this. Like I don't know if it was good. I don't know if it was bad. I haven't seen it. I will never be able to see it probably.
Mhm.
This kind of in this whole situation sort of invokes the whole fan four stick, what happened with that, where like all of this shit came out about it like in the weeks up until it was released, and Fox still released it, and yeah, it did that.
And yeah, but now 7 years later, we look at fan four stick, and everyone involved in that like is not in a better place.
No,
Michael B. Jordan's in a better place.
Who?
Yeah, but not because of that.
Oh yeah. Anyways, we haven't heard anything bad about Batgirl up until like now, if you can even call that bad.
Yeah, right. They're not. I mean, honestly, like with the exception of that first New York Post story that said it was bad, most of the perspective on it isn't that it's bad. It's just that it was kind of like lackluster.
Yeah, but like that. I mean, I understand businesses have to do what they have to do, whether we like it or not. But like, this movie had a cast like Leslie Grace, J.K. Simmons. It was like Michael Keaton's triumphant return to the role of Batman. That has selling power. Like,
well, but like, wasn't the Flash set first and supposed to come out first? So that's the triumphant return.
Exactly.
So that's kind of like, yeah, that's not.
Yeah, but to like general audiences, I don't think they'd care.
Flash is the big theatrical one. Like, wasn't Batgirl supposed to go to HBO Max?
Yeah, it was supposed to be. Yeah. It was always supposed to be an HBO Max movie. Like, it was supposed to be the continuation, not direct continuation, but enough of a continuation of the Flash. So again, like we said before, it would have always had to wait for the Flash to come out. The alleged Flash movie.
It was always my issue with it. It's like, yeah, okay, but this Flash movie has to come out first.
Yeah, so I mean, if the Flash isn't coming out until June of next year, then Batgirl wouldn't be coming out until at latest, earliest, like August, of next year, a year from now. So it would have been just sitting in the can if they weren't going to spend on it.
That's never really stopped anyone before, though. Like,
but again, this isn't the same regime. This is a new regime that wants to show to the shareholders that they're not about burning through money like the previous regime. That's why the precedent doesn't really work. Like, their whole point is that we're not like those other guys. One of the big, I mean, it kind of came off as a little dickish, but like Zaslav was like, we are not putting out a movie if it's not good. Like, if it does not meet our level of quality, it's not coming out. Like, our job as like the custodians of DC IP is that like we want all of our stuff to be good.
I'll give them this. They have,
and the implication, of course, is that if they don't put it out, it's not good, which isn't fair. But at least now we have to hold them to that, right? Now everything that comes out, like, if it's not good, we point the finger and go, was this supposed to be better than Batgirl? Like,
every bad DC movie that comes out will now get the Killmonger meme. Like, this your king?
Exactly.
They can't release the Flash. They cannot.
But apparently, here's the thing. According to like everyone in the industry, the movie's good, right? According to Zaslav himself, he enjoyed indirectly. Apparently, even Zaslav enjoys the Flash movie, right? That movie's coming out. Like, Ezra Miller would have to like, a la Scream 2, like kill someone in the movie theater for that movie to not come out.
Don't even joke with that, because that could happen with this guy, this
person. Yeah. I know I shouldn't joke about it, but like like I really feel like that is the line of what it would take for that movie not to come out. Like,
What if they would like, I don't know. I don't even want to suggest things they could do because that could get really, I don't want to be uncomfortable in hindsight podcast. So I won't do that to you, but yeah.
Fair
I do
enough.
think though that like the thing with the Ezra Flash movie is it's already been in production. It's cost them so much money up to this point anyway, and it is going to get a theatrical release. It was never scheduled for streaming.
Yeah.
And it has the opportunity to reset the DC universe, which would be in keeping with a grand plan. The only problem is your star may not be able to do the press junkets because they may be imprisoned by then.
How do you market
it's fine. Listen, we talked about this before. I mean, those of you who follow me on Twitter know. The answer is, of course, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson will be inserted into every DC movie from here on out, the way that he was inserted into DC Super Pets. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson will be added into the Flash movie so that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson can do promotion instead of Ezra Miller. And that's the answer. Or Kevin Hart. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Kevin Hart. Both of them will be added into the Flash movie. There'll be a Flash that's Kevin Hart. You heard it here first.
Barry Allen, Wally West.
Kevin Hart Flash will be the multiverse Flash. And yeah, there's the answer. So they will get to do promotion for the Flash, and Ezra Miller. Yeah, I mean they've got a role in the movie, sure. But the important thing is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Kevin Hart in the Flash movie, and that's just
the Dwayne Johnson vehicle, the Flash.
Yeah, exactly. That is the answer for WB.
I could totally see Kevin Hart being like Iris West's dad or something. You're like,
Kevin Hart. Listen, Kevin Hart is Wally West of the multiverse.
I could totally see it.
So, I mean, guys, you heard it here first. That is how they're going to promote the Flash. It's going to involve Dwayne and Kevin. Not the Kevin that they thought that they were going to get, they were replacing Feige or trying to find their Feige. But promotion wise, I mean, we're joking here, but I like I said before, I do hope that Leslie Grace, I know you want her in Marvel. I wouldn't mind her in Marvel, but I like Batgirl as a character.
Sure.
I wanna see Birds of Prey. Like I want to see Batgirl and Black Canary share the screen together. I mean that streaming movie's not coming out. Like if there's a way to get them on screen together on the big screen, if the decision is that it's only big screen projects from here on out, then we need a way to explain put these characters together on the big screen so that everyone has the opportunity to shine.
You put them in Madam Web and you let that sort itself out. No, I know when I was like Sky is Falling mode earlier in the week, I was like, Blue Beetle isn't coming out. I take that back. Blue Beetle will be released. That will come out. But I do not believe the Sasha Calle Supergirl movie is ever going to happen. I think that's done.
I mean, I didn't even know it was supposed to happen.
I didn't even know
Was that again?
The idea
Julia?
that, yeah, go ahead.
I didn't know either.
Yeah.
Well, the idea was like that she was Supergirl in the Flash and that she was going to be Supergirl.
Right. But I mean, what I'm saying is that I didn't know that there was a specific project for her.
Oh yeah, no, I don't think there was anything specifically announced, but I think that was the implication, was that like she would be the Supergirl going forward.
Yeah.
And I think that's dead in the water. I
mean, like we don't know how she's meant to be introduced into the universe in the first place.
Sure.
But if she's just going to be the Supergirl of the universe, then they could have her be in a Superman movie. if there's a Superman movie, which we still don't know is going to happen. You know, we've been well on the record about the vaporware aspect of DC when it comes to making announcements and winning the press conference, but they're not moving forward on that. There was just a piece, a pretty long piece actually in Hollywood Reporter about what they're planning to do with respect to J.J. Abrams, who is a super producer that has signed on to do a lot of WB projects that have not come out. Will his Superman produced project come out that is supposed to involve a Black Superman? Probably not. Probably not. But you know, has not been officially shelved. I just think that as part of their 10-year plan, these kind of like one-offs, these projects that seem like a combination of vanity projects and things that will get you a bunch of retweets on Twitter, like it's just not the direction that the new WB Discovery wants to go with respect to the DC properties.
But then they announced the release date for Joker 2. Which like is that part of your 10-year plan? Or are you just going to keep throwing those out on the side?
The sequel to the $55 million movie that made $1 billion.
I get the business of it, but if it was about keeping him with, you know, your 10-year plan for a Marvel-like universe, then you're saying this is your Joker? Or
no, I mean, I hear that point. I mean, I also think that they're still moving forward with the Batman, right, in that universe.
Yeah, including the HBO Max stuff, supposedly.
Exactly, because that movie made $780 million and people liked it quite a bit. And the appetite for Batman is endless. The appetite for Batman is endless. Right? You know, if they want to say, this would be crazy, but I would be into it. If they want to say, you know what? Our Batgirl project is actually going to be in the Batman universe. Leslie Grace is going to be playing Commissioner Gordon's daughter, the Commissioner Gordon that's played by Jeffrey Wright.
Which is what we said when they announced it was going to be an HBO Max, and we're like, wait, which Commissioner Gordon is she related to? She's related to J.K. Simmons?
Yeah,
you know, that was way back when. So
if they want to do that, I'm here for it. I mean, Jared, are you here for it?
Like, I don't see if they can make it in line with the Reeves verse, if that's what it's called. Sure. I mean, I don't know what Matt Reeves has in store for the future of the Batman universe, and if that is in line with what he wants, then sure, do it. I mean, Leslie Grace deserves like a chance to shine, and just do it.
No, I mean, I just think that if they announce tomorrow that the Batgirl project would be reworked to be in the Matt Reeves Batman universe, I think that would go a huge way into you know, both making things right with Leslie Grace and making things right with the fandom.
I guess I'm just so sick of DC's throw shit at the wall and see what sticks universe, you know.
Oh yeah. I mean, fair enough. The feces verse is yeah. I hear that.
I need more like I don't think they will have a 10-year plan, but I'm really hoping that they do. And I would like to see how I would like an illustration of how this 10-year plan is going to, you know, unfold.
So
I want.
So do you want a PowerPoint presentation of them like laying out all 10 years of the plan?
I'm a visual learner, okay? I'm a very visual person. You know, the Feige, the Phase 4, I love those. Those are great. Okay,
so
I want one of those.
So if they did that, would people like just think that they were just openly copying Marvel though if they did that?
They said they were.
No, right. No, I get that. I get that part. If they like them saying that they want to emulate Marvel, sure. But like if they literally use the terminology of like phase one, phase, you know what I mean? Like
I'd say phase, yeah, but you know.
You say like era, like just I think you can still do. I don't want them copying Marvel. Marvel was lightning in a bottle. You know, it cannot be reproduced unless they have the exact same circumstances as they did back in 2008 and before that. I just would like a clearer understanding of what their plan is. How are they going to how are they going to start releasing movies that are good and coherent in an overarching coherent narrative, you know?
Yeah, so I got to be honest. We've been lied to so many times by DC about their plans that I really don't want them to lie to me again about like in from 2023 to 2033, these are all the projects that we're going to put out. It's just going to be lies, guys. I would just be happy if they told us what was happening in the next 2 years and they stuck to it. Like if they could do that, if they could just say, like, because remember where we were in February of this year when they laid out the 4 movies that were going to come out in 2022, and then a month later, all of those movies got reshuffled.
I remembered going to the Batman and they had this trailer playing like, here's what's coming this year, right? And I'm like, it's gonna change. And the next day, I'm pretty sure it changed.
Yes.
Year of Heroes or something like that.
It was like, yeah. That's what I mean. Don't do that anymore. Like if you can't even commit to a year of projects, I don't need your next 10 years of projects. As long as you've got it working behind the scenes, like just show me whatever you need to show me, and then over time you can build goodwill and you can build confidence. Like, because right now, if you give me 10 years of projects, I'm going to think that 9 of those years are complete bullshit.
I'm still waiting for the Cyborg movie, honestly.
What'd you say?
I'm still waiting for the Cyborg movie.
Oh no, don't do that.
No,
just watch RoboCop.
Yeah,
it's pretty good. If they had said, you know what, we're cutting it. There's not going to be any more Aquaman movies. We're done making Wonder Woman movies. Like, we're going to start over. I would have reacted exuberantly with the news, even if it included the Batgirl project.
Oh no, I wouldn't.
See, I wouldn't. They were just telling me like, we're going to start over, clean slate, going to start over. I would have been like, okay, all right, let's do this. But the fact that it was like the only one that gets cut is the Batgirl movie, and you're telling me that you're trying to build a MCU thing, but you've still got these like dangling, threads from the prior regime. Mm-hmm. How are we doing this? Are we making more Wonder Woman movies? I have no idea. The last one sucked. Like, are we sticking with Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman? I don't know. Who's your Batman? I don't know. Who's your Superman? I don't know. Do you have any Green Lantern projects? I'm not sure. Like what is it? It really right now seems like Shazam, Black Adam, and Aquaman are your 3 franchises.
And
the Batman and the Joker. Yeah, well, the Flash, but I don't expect them to make any more Flash movies after that. Not with Ezra. Mm-hmm. So you with the Batman and the Joker, which apparently are not tied to your other 3 franchises.
Yeah, sure.
So, like, honestly, DC, whatever Legion of Super Pets has more likelihood of getting a trilogy, like any of these other movies. If they would have just said, you know what, we're calling it here. We're just going to start over. We're taking the L. We're writing off all of it. We're making billions writing off all of these movies. I would have been like, okay, let's see it. Let's do it.
Yeah, I would be much more worried because you can't do that and not announce like who your new person is. Like if they did that and then they were like, and here's Christopher Nolan. Back we gave him a whole gold, like we gave him a whole tower of gold coins to come back and fix our shit, right?
Yeah.
Like, or whoever, the name.
You announced JJ right then and there. You're like, he's the one that's gonna. Yeah,
JJ Abrams is gonna save us, right? He's gonna do a mystery box, and it's gonna like in
We're
10 years.
the lens flare verse.
Right? In 10
Oh
years.
my god! Oh my god! Oh, no. Never mind. It's CBR. Sorry, I thought I had some news. But
okay.
It's CBR.
But
So
it's just CBR. But yeah, I mean, you can't do that. You can't say you're going to do a full reboot and not say who's handling your reboot, right? So maybe this time next year, when they actually have their person, their like Kevin Feige person, then they could say we're completely rebooting it. But for now, you have to say, hey, remember that Aquaman movie that you liked, kinda? Still coming out.
And still part of our plan. That's like
yeah. It's like, again, you guys like The Rock. You love The Rock. The Rock is great. He's got a movie coming out in a couple months. You love him. And Shazam, you kind of love them, sort of.
I mean, they were never gonna sever ties with The Rock. So I know that what I'm saying is all fanboy, but
yeah. Unless The Rock is going to be their Kevin Feige.
Right. If The Rock was their Kevin, he comes out going like, did I tell you the hierarchy was going to change or what?
The hierarchy of power, the hierarchy of creative power, the hierarchy of economic power. I killed Batgirl.
Y'all were thinking pennies, man. I'm thinking dollars.
The Rock comes out next month. In the post-credit scene of Black Adam is Leslie Grace's Batgirl. Got it. We saved the DC universe. She is going to be part of the Rock's DC universe, and it's all been solved. It's all been solved. But yeah, I get it. It's a mess, but it's their job to tell the shareholders that the $50 billion that the previous regime lost, this new regime's not trying to lose that kind of money. And I guess, they only took power in April. It's asking a lot for them to get it together by now. Hopefully these next movies will be good, because again, we can now say we can do the BTBG better than Batgirl.
That's the Mendoza line forever.
Yeah, it's like, all right, we now have to ask ourselves, is this better than what Batgirl would have been? It's fair game to ask those questions. Like you said, use the "Is this your king?" meme. Is this better than Batgirl? You have to prove it. And
ultimately, I'm really just not a fan of how they handle it. It's business decisions are business decisions, but it was just like a really cold and not very thoughtful way to handle it. That's really ultimately where I come down on it.
Yeah. And, not that we should equate the two, but, so a lot of people on the internet doing that. They better put all of their promotional muscle behind Blue Beetle to make things right with the Latinx community, just people in general who like think that they're like going big in with white protagonists. Prove us wrong. Make Blue Beetle a major hit movie. Still, again, we talked about this before, still the first Latinx-led superhero project. Superhero movie, not project, because Moon Knight.
Right.
Julia,
Oh, that's it.
Julia's out. But we send her the best. But if that's their approach, then they better prove that they're not, that it's a money thing and it's not a multiracial, cultural thing.
Yeah.
And the way to do that is to really promote. It's supposed to happen about a year from now. That the movie's going to come to theaters. Find a way to put Batgirl in this movie. Do what you got to do. And you can change the narrative, but for right now, you got to take your lumps. You got to take your lumps. So that's the, we kind of touched on this. Did you guys hear that? Jared, did you see Super Pets?
I didn't. I really
that's fine.
Not
so. Apparently, The Rock put the full post-credit scene of Super Pets out on the internet today.
Was that the one with like the Black Adam dog? What
Mhm.
what was that?
That's the post-credit scene of DC.
That is the post-credit scene of Super Pets.
Can you like describe it to me? Like I've only seen like a
spoilers for Super Pets, guys.
Yeah.
Not really for the movie, but just for the post-credit scene. It's a movie about the pets of superheroes. And at the end of the movie, the dog of Black Adam shows up alongside Black Adam. And the dog of Black Adam has a conversation with the dog of Superman. And he talks about how like his master is an anti-hero and he's a badass.
It's like a meta conversation about what an anti-hero is versus a villain.
Exactly. Exactly. It's a whole meta conversation about how, and it seemed like it was kind of The Rock's voice, but I'm not sure.
It is. The Rock was voicing both Krypto, the super dog, and Anubis, Black Adam's dog.
And Black Adam, probably.
And Black Adam.
Yes.
Right.
Are we now going to get like Anubis in the Black Adam movie?
I hope we do.
There's no way.
Look, I hope we do. But
that's our plan. Everyone just played by The Rock.
Yeah.
I mean, just like we're not getting Ace the Bat Hound in the Batman.
I mean, we're definitely not going to do that.
No.
But the point is, it was fun. It was a cute little conversation about like you said, a meta conversation about, or meta commentary about anti-heroes, and like, is an anti-hero just a villain? I mean, it's a fine line. It's a fine line, as Anubis said. And
I'll admit it's a fine line.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I mean, I do think that that's a path that they could take of Black Adam playing a bigger role in future projects. He is in a lot of ways their Namor. Shout out to Namor in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
I mean, that comparison's been there before. The anti-hero king of a fictional country.
I think that there's a way, even though we were just joking about it. I mean, I think there's just a way to have people feel like after this Black Adam movie, if it's good, again, it has to be good. If this Black Adam movie is good, it introduces the Justice Society, which is a group that most audiences are not aware of.
Correct.
If that creates this new branch of stories to make people forget about Zack Snyder and what they were doing with that, I mean, I think that there's a path. I think that there's a path to The Rock, what he's doing, him just being out there and promoting the hell out of the new direction of DC. And if they put their money behind it and they put him in the forefront, as long as the projects are good, I think that they could kind of reverse the course of these narratives.
I think ultimately what it comes down to is they need their Kevin Feige, and I don't. The Rock's not it. I'll be honest.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I think that they need both, right? I think they need their Kevin Feige and they need their Robert Downey Jr., right? So Kevin Feige, because even if they have a creative vision, that doesn't guarantee that their creative person is the promotional person.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they've got to do both. They've got to have the direction, their 10-year plan, or whatever they want to do with respect to building out the universe. But then you also have to have someone who's just in your face telling people that it's cool to like DC.
Who do you guys
You know?
think should be the Kevin Feige of the
I
DC
really don't
universe?
know. I mean, I think that's a harder job than people make it sound like.
Yeah.
You know, it's a producer. Producers generally aren't well known. Kevin Feige is just a rare bird because, you know, like, you know, he's been there. But how many years did the MCU exist before we really knew anything about Kevin Feige?
Yeah, like I wouldn't have been able to give you Kevin Feige's name in 2008. You know, like
Even
I
when
don't
the
know.
first Avengers movie dropped, you know,
Yeah.
he was really behind the scenes.
Yeah, we even got all of the credit for the Avengers movie. And it was like, no, this has been pretty much Kevin Feige's plan from the beginning, right?
Yeah. You know, and that's the thing. I think that it was his creative vision, but he, you know, he had a lot of other people on his side that were getting more exposure. I think that it's tough because DC thought they had their Kevin Feige with, you know, with Zack Snyder.
Yeah. Zack Snyder's like an auteur. Like,
Yeah,
you
but
can't put the man in charge. Like, but he's also making the movies. I feel like this person has to be completely removed from every.
no, I
The day-to-day filmmaking.
Sure, no,
Yeah.
for sure. But I think that in their mind back then, I think that they thought that, like, he has his own movies that he's working on, but then these other movies like Wonder Woman, like Suicide Squad, that he was not directing, but that he had a say in, you know, that he was helping to kind of bring it into like a unified vision. And then when the movies weren't good, and when they didn't make the money that they wanted to make, then the real studio bosses were like, oh, well, no, I mean, he's not our guy. You know, and then they never, you know, they had the part of the problem with why can't I remember his name, with Jeff Johns, is that he was then supposed to be there, the Kevin Feige. But, you know, he ended up not being that guy. I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to have a figurehead. It's hard to have a creative figurehead that can do all these things and then also be the figurehead.
Yeah, like I was gonna say Jon Favreau, but even that, even then, I think that an entire cinematic universe is too much for Jon Favreau to handle like that.
Yeah,
like he's
and,
got
and
the
again,
Star
even in the
Wars-
Star Wars, it's Jon Favreau and also Dave Filoni.
and it's like Jon Favreau television. It's not Jon Favreau television and films and, you know, animated and all of it. You know, it's just he's got the television wing and he's doing a great job with it. But I think that an entire cinematic universe like that takes a little, and then you know, Jon Favreau would then have to be like, and I'm also not directing anything for the next, you know, 15 years, which he's a director, you know, like that's Chef is one of my favorite movies ever. And it's, you know, so yeah, I don't know the name that I would give. I also would say Marvel never had a star as big as The Rock in definitely in that first phase. I can't think of, I'm trying to go through and like, when was the first time they got a star as big as The Rock is at the time that they got, you know, at the time that he made his first movie with Marvel, because Robert Downey Jr. is as big a name as he wasn't opening movies. It wasn't like he was a great guy to have.
He was on the bounce back, honestly.
Yes. Yeah. And, you know, Ed Norton, again, great actor. He's not opening blockbuster films. Not as the lead, at least. I can't think of the biggest star Marvel got, right? Like, you know,
Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah, Samuel L. Jackson, who again doesn't, when he's the lead, in the film, it's not like the movie opens. It's when he's in an ensemble.
Exactly.
That's the movie, like when
Supporting
Changing
that.
Lanes wasn't a huge blockbuster. Like I can't even think of other Samuel L. Jackson ones. Like it's really who was the first Marvel superhero who was like, wow, they got a really big star to be
Paul Rudd?
Wow. I mean, like,
Is that
it can't be Paul Rudd.
I mean, Chris Evans wasn't huge.
No.
Chris Pratt wasn't huge.
Oh.
No.
Bradley Cooper voiced a raccoon.
And Vin Diesel voiced Trey.
Vin Diesel voiced a tree. Like I mean, I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody, but I don't know.
It's not Paul Rudd.
I didn't know Chris Hemsworth before Thor. I didn't know
Chris Hemsworth was just in like Star Trek.
Right, like
beginning of Star Trek.
Yeah.
I really
if we're not counting villains, if we're counting like the main characters of the superhero movies,
right?
Like Scarlett Johansson was probably their biggest, like most recognizable. And and it took forever for her to get her own lead movie, right?
Right.
Chadwick.
Geez, if it's Chadwick, I mean, Civil War was what, 2014?
2016.
2016.
And Ant-Man
and again, we're talking about like the solo movie though, so we're talking about Black Panther.
Right.
Which is Marvel really like makes stars like Chris Hemsworth, Chris was it Chris Evans?
Chris
Evans was not a star before.
I mean, Chris Evans was on his like 5th comic book franchise when he did Captain America.
Man, we're really getting into it. Like,
I mean, in terms of like, I mean, there aren't a ton of movie stars left in Hollywood, like true movie stars where you go to see it because that actor is the lead. But like, they've never had like Leonardo DiCaprio or The Rock or
at a time.
Yeah,
they get them to play villains. They get them to play villains all the time, but like never to be the lead.
Yeah, I mean, God, Thanos, right? Like Josh Brolin.
I mean, so like Jeff Bridges. I'm looking through all of the movies. Ed Norton and Tim Roth.
Tim Roth was pretty likable.
Mickey Rourke.
But you're right. These are the villains, right?
Right.
The villains tend to be. I mean, that's a successful formula. That the villains, because they're only going to be in one movie.
That's tried and true since Batman.
Yeah, you come in, you chew the scenery, you collect your huge check. You're done.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly right. I'm waiting. I'm just going through. I'm actually going through Kevin Feige's IMDb right now. Guardians of the Galaxy. No, I don't think you could say any of them were huge stars. It really might be Ant-Man.
Oh my God.
If you consider Paul Rudd a huge star.
Not really a huge star.
He's not really a huge star. He was making like some R-rated comedies, like back then, but
was Paul Rudd the sexiest man alive at that point, or was that later?
I feel like
probably much later. Yeah.
Who was Paul Rudd in?
Mark Ruffalo, but he wasn't even in a solo movie.
Nah.
Benedict Cumberbatch.
Benedict Cumberbatch is the right choice.
Yeah.
He's the biggest. He's because he had already been in some starring roles. He had already been in like what's the movie where he played Alan Turing. Like
Benedict Game.
Yeah, like Benedict Cumberbatch is the guy. Like he's the biggest star lead that they like household name that people would actually know.
Coming off his Oscar nom.
And compare that to the star level of
The
Dwayne
Rock
Johnson. Like it's not even it's astronomical, the difference. Like they never even had a star as big as Ben Affleck.
No.
Like it's really remarkable what they've been able to do with not lesser talent, but definitely lower rating names.
Right, but one might argue that that's a feature and not a bug.
Yes.
Right. One might argue that that's why they've been able to be so successful, because they don't have to, kowtow or whatever you want to call it, so sort of like cater to the whims of the star power, because the brand and the IP is a star, and they can use star power to enhance the brand rather than be reliant on the brand. Because again, we've said this before, if the Rock is a star, but like, if you were deciding for him what role to take, would Black Adam be the role that you would put him in? Probably not.
No.
But because that's the role that he wanted to play, then they had to turn their storytelling into a The Rock vehicle for Black Adam.
Yeah, and the Black Adam that appears at the end of Super Pets is definitely Dwayne Johnson's Black Adam, like he's bald and everything. It's he's going to be the definitive Black Adam.
And I do remember saying that. Like, being a star and director oriented for DC rather than being story driven and character driven is more challenging than just being like, hey guys, we're going to tell this story and we'd like to have you aboard for the story that we're trying to tell across these movies and help us build up this brand, help us build up this universe. If you're constantly like, hey, we need to get, like, I don't know if you guys remember, Joaquin Phoenix, like, was one of the people that they were considering for Doctor Strange, and he didn't want to do it because he didn't want to be part of a bigger universe.
He didn't want to commit for 10 years of his life or 15 years of his life. Yeah.
Irony.
But I mean, like, him just doing like a Joker movie here and then doing another Joker movie a few years later, like, is not the same as him going to all these press conferences, going to Comic-Cons and being like, hey, the DC universe, like, it takes a certain kind of personality to be that person. And honestly, DC, for all the stars that they've gotten, Margot Robbie is probably someone who's on board with that. Margot Robbie and The Rock are probably like the only two people so far who would be like down for just showing up and hyping up DC generally, not counting the movies that they're in.
Yeah, that's probably true. I was gonna put Momoa in there, but I don't know.
John Cena.
I don't know. John Cena.
That'll be interesting. That will be interesting to see whether that's the direction that they go. I don't know. I mean, look, we are, let's tie it in a bow. We are disappointed with the decision with regard to Batgirl. We are hoping that it's not another in a series of fails for DC. We're hoping that in a year's time, we can look back and say this was growing pains for what they were trying to do and not just another example of how they really don't know what they're doing. I mean, we didn't mention this, so I'll mention it now. They took in total projects $825 million worth of write-downs for various projects, including Batgirl. Like, they're really trying to clear off their budgetary responsibility so that they can ideally, based on what they told their shareholders, make a fresh start. And I hope they're right. I hope that, we just aren't seeing the vision.
I mean, if you were doing like a movie studio executive simulation game, this would be what you would do, right? Like, as soon as you take over, you're like, all right, let's write down everything and get as much money as possible and get as close to a clean slate as we can while keeping our lucrative franchises.
Yeah.
The thing is that there is a human element involved.
And that's the part that
in the long run, are they burning bridges? I
Yeah.
hope that they're not, but it would not shock me if Leslie Grace never works with Warner Brothers again. And while that might not be on its own, a necessarily like impactful relationship to go away, if her agency is like, yeah, we don't deal with you because we don't know if your movies are going to come out.
So here's the irony though. 1 year ago, what we were talking about is how Marvel CEO Bob Chapek was not handling the human element of putting Black Widow out on streaming and not dealing with the personalities of Scarlett Johansson and their strategy. And we were, it's kind of the inverse, releasing movies on streaming in the middle of the pandemic and upsetting the talent. And Marvel kind of Marvel and Disney kind of weathered some of those storms, and now here we are feeling like Marvel is maybe okay, despite a season, half a year of shaky projects. But we sort of trust them. Maybe
we also got out ahead of it and said, we offered her all this money. Remember that, like the smear campaign, like people were openly rooting for Disney against Scarlett Johansson, which me, that always freaks me out.
Right.
People are like in the bag for a multi-billion-dollar corporation.
But I also think that part of it was the fact that we were still in the pandemic.
Yes.
And the idea of like doing a theatrical release, in the high point of the pandemic, like consumer wise, we were like, no, we will pay $30 so we don't have to go see it in the theaters. But regardless, a lot of the criticisms for Zaslav were being directed at Chapek, and Chapek has had to deal with a lot of negative, publicity over the course of the last 8 to 12 months.
Sure.
And he's safe still. So
didn't they work it out though? Like, isn't ScarJo like producing an MCU project?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying. Like, you can find a way to smooth things over with your talent. Usually involves a lot of money. I don't know.
You're trying to save a bunch of money. They're not going to, Leslie Grace is not suddenly going to become the producer of whatever.
Well, that's a funny thing. That's what I had read, that like with the, what happened with Kilar when he moved all of those projects to streaming on HBO Max without consulting with any of the directors or actors. They had to use like somewhere in the neighborhood of like $300 million to like pay people out to like smooth those things over. So like, saving relationships in Hollywood usually involves paying out millions of dollars. In the long run, they can get cleaned up, but in the short run, it just looks like a spending spree.
I find it so funny that they've basically gone in a circle and have spent so much money doing so.
Yeah. All right, guys, that was a lot of nerd news and a lot of like corporate shenanigans. We will try to, as best as we can, run through the racial draft business. Trade week. Jared, have you been paying attention to Trade Week?
I have been a little bit, yeah.
All right. Well, for the benefit of the listeners,
I've been paying attention too, Mike.
I mean, you've been paying attention because you've been participating in Trade Week. But I will quickly, for the benefit of the listeners, run through the there was the 10 trades in Trade Week. 10 trades. Yara Flor for America Chavez, the Latinx delegation and the Native American delegation. Bobby Drake, Iceman, and Dante Pertuz, the Fire Ice trade, involving the Latinx delegation and Native American delegation. Jessica Jones for Forge, the Native American delegation and multiracial delegation. Robbie Reyes, Ghost Rider, for Remy LeBeau, yes. Gambit, multiracial for Latinx. Thor Odinson and Mark Spector, white Latinx delegations. Kendra Saunders for Shira Hall, Hawk Girl for Hawk Girl, or Hawk Woman for Hawk Woman, depending on how you feel like referring to the female gender. Martin McCabe for Dinah Lance, Black Canary for Vixen, the Black delegation, multiracial delegation. Garth, aka Tempest, and Blade, Black delegation, and East Southeast Asian delegation. Arthur Curry for Jackson Hyde, Aquaman for Aquaman, the Black delegation, multiracial delegation. And finally, Rio Morales, the mother of Miles Morales, for Monica Rambeau, aka Spectrum, the Black delegation and Latinx delegation. These were our trades, and we will quickly run through along with some of the approval ratings from last week. So could you guys vamp for me a little bit? Yes. Starting off, 100% approval rating from last week. El Vegigante, 100%. Yeah, go ahead and take your 20 points. Go ahead and do a victory lap for Vegigante.
I'm going to run this way, and now I'm running that way. Here's the lap. Whew. Victory complete.
No, I mean, let the people know a little bit more about the character. You know, I mean, we talked about it a little bit, but you know, you weren't.
This character is so dope. So the Vejigantes are they're like kind of like demon spirit things that the Puerto Ricans make these masks, and they use them in their festivals, especially in the South in Ponce. And the character is he's a Puerto Rican soldier, I believe, fought in Iraq, and he comes to Puerto Rico, and he is like taken as the next Vejigante who is like in the Marvel universe, like the protector of Puerto Rico. So he's got these like superpowers, and he has this helmet thing that looks just like the Vejigante masks that they use. And now,
what's the translation of Vejigante?
You know what? I'm not even sure what the direct translation is for that. But it's so he has these superpowers as long as he's on the island of Puerto Rico. So like he can't go to New York and be the Vejigante. He's got to be the protector of Puerto Rico in Puerto Rico.
Here's the question. Here's the loophole question. On a, I mean, it's Puerto Rico, so it's not quite the same thing. But if you were in like an embassy, with that
yeah, count? Right. I don't know.
Yeah. or if you like took a little piece of like of the land and put it in his pocket.
Oh, like, I see. Yeah. You know, and like I would love to see them play with like the loopholes of that, like have you know, Puerto Rico, like just basically Tony Stark set up Puerto Rican embassies because he's got the money to do it. And be like, yeah, if you want me to travel, you're going to need to make this Puerto Rico, technically, like legally.
Or it would be even funnier if you just like, if you go to like a Puerto Rican neighborhood, it's like if there are enough Puerto Ricans like in your area.
Your power. I am El Vejigante.
Puerto Rico isn't a place, it's a people.
It's a people. Yeah, so he's super strong in New York, Chicago, and Puerto Rico, and Southern Florida.
Yes, exactly. No, I mean, listen, perfect representation. Can't be mad at it. And that's why 100% approval rating. We got to talk about the trade approvals right now. The first trade of the week was the America Chavez for Yara Flor trade. And right now, 95.8% approval for Latina America Chavez and 91.3% approval for Native American Yara Flor. So right now, almost a double 90s. And you know what that means, extra points. But still a day before that gets confirmed. So we have to keep it moving. Keeping it moving. the Fire and Ice trade versus Iceman and Dante. So Dante, Latino Dante, is sitting at 100% approval.
Shocking, even me.
I mean, he's a Latino character. He's he's hot. He's got some fire. He's right there in the stereotype guy.
He's a spicy Latino. Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
he's. I mean, even though he's in Inhuman, the dirty word, the Inhuman. He's the Inhuman answer to the Human Torch.
Right.
But 81.3% approval for Native American Iceman. So that's going to be tough. Day left, got to get those votes up in order to get that up to 90%. But the people weren't seeing it. They weren't really seeing where the axis was for Native American Bobby Drake.
Right.
There was a trade out there for multiracial Bobby Drake, which would have worked because a Canadian person named Drake who it might have worked out for you, but and he's also Jewish like Bobby Drake is. Didn't happen for you. Maybe next season. Maybe next season. Moving forward, we also have some family chaining. 100% sitting there for Elena Chavez and Malia Chavez. So if those hold, that's more some more approval points. The other trade, this was a Native American delegation and the multiracial delegation forge to the Native American delegation, and Jessica Jones to the multiracial delegation. But right now, 87.5%, which is kind of fucked. That 12.5% is racist. We got to talk about it. 12.5% disapproving of Native American forage, and 14.3% also racist, disapproving of multiracial Jessica Jones. So they've got a day to get that shit together, or no bonus points for that. Keeping it moving, family chaining though. Ooh, Danielle Cage, 87.5%.
Ooh, right there.
Gotta get it. Gotta get it. And let's see, Robbie Reyes currently sitting at 93.8% approving of Latino Robbie Reyes, and 91.7% multiracial Gambit. So hopefully that holds. Moving on, big trade, White Thor for Latino. Well, Thor ending up as white, Moon Knight ending up as Latino. Currently sitting at 85.7% approval for White Thor.
Just crazy.
87.6% approval rating for Latino Moon Knight. Got to get those votes up if you want to get your approval points. I mean, that hurts. That hurts for sure.
I mean, it's canon. Oscar Isaac is Latino.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I guess some certain members of the Jewish delegation were like, not on our watch.
I think Oscar Isaac has some Jew in him, like way, like a little. I think that like came out somewhere.
I mean, it's a tough. It's a somewhere way back in his background, but not enough to actually point to.
I feel like that's what you say when you're kind of ambiguous looking and you get cast to play a traditionally Jewish character. You go, oh yeah, my is Jewish.
I mean, this is not the first time that Oscar Isaac has played a Jewish character. I believe he played an Israeli in a spy movie. So he's rocking that hard.
I'll be honest, if it weren't Oscar Isaac, I would probably be upset about it. But I love that man, and I mean,
I get it. I totally get it.
I mean, I have $10 that says Marvel did not know he was Latino when they cast him. When they cast Oscar Isaac, they're like, oh, a Jew to play a Jew.
No, I think it was the opposite. I think that they were like, oh, he's Latino and he's Jewish. Oh yes, perfect. It's a 2 for 1. And then they were like,
Right.
okay. Because they were probably looking at like he's played Jewish people and other stuff. Like he's got to be Jewish. But anyway, 100% approval for Jewish Firestar. Shout out to Firestar for joining the tribe. Jared, I know you approved of it before. Do you still approve?
Yeah, my thoughts still stand.
Right.
Jewish Firestar David.
Nice.
As long as we can make it work into some sort of pun, then it works.
That's true. Puns rule all. Additionally, also 100% approval rating for East Asian white fox, which again, the nine-tailed fox, we've talked about that before. Go ahead and give them their points. Moving on. The other trade, the Hawkgirl for Hawkgirl trade, this one hurts. This one hurts because as we know, Kendra Saunders generally either Black or Latina or both. And the multiracial delegation tried to make her both Black, Latina, and Egyptian because Hawks.
Yeah.
But the people were like, nah, fuck that, 70% approval.
They said that's not part of our 10-year vision.
Exactly. An 81.8% approval for Egyptian Shayera Hall. So neither of them, it's not looking like we'll get their approval points for swapping the Hawks. But I saw the vision. I respect it. 100% approval rating in the Black delegation, though. Getting it done. Black Galactus, as we mentioned last week, he uses his heralds to season the earths before he devours them, as you do. So yeah, Black Galactus, 20 points.
He's Galactus, right?
Yep.
Or Balactus. I kind of like Balactus.
I like it. Yeah, either way, it really works.
Also, he family chained his mother Taia. Go ahead and give that also 100 points.
Is his mother still in the new Defenders?
I believe so. I mean, if that book's still going.
That book is wild.
Also, from the approval standpoint, North Star, multiracial North Star, got 100% approval. I believe North Star was supposed to be French, Black, and Native American, or First Nations. Good old brown mix. And 20% or 20% points or 20 points. Also, wait for it. Oh, there we go. 100% approval rating for Aurora as well, his twin sister.
All right.
Another defensive pick from the Native American delegation, John Greycrow, 100% approval. So they don't hate him like they hate apparently Native American Forge.
They're a fickle people, the voters.
Yep. Moving on. Oh, shout out to our gal Charlene for finally coming through with the fan art for Swamp Thing for Southeast Asian Swamp Thing. I don't remember if I gave the points, so I will look at it right now, guys. Vamp for me. Did you guys manage? Jared, did you see the Swamp Thing fan art?
Yeah, it was great. Like the reflection was really cool.
Yes, that's the best part.
Yeah.
Okay.
Her art's really great.
This is all I've seen from her, but it was really good.
I agree. Hopefully we'll get more fan art from her in season 5. And we'll talk about that, probably in the upcoming weeks about whether she'll be both a representative, a delegate, and also a fan art provider. But yeah. Swamp Thing. Disappointing. We got to talk about the white delegation not getting the points that I feel that they deserve. I almost want to overrule the people here because the Wasp, both Wasps, 83% approval and 75% approval for the Wasps. Guys, it's Wasps that are Wasps. I don't know. I can only lead you guys to the water. Can't make you drink it, apparently. Very disappointing. The Aquaman trade. This one is a little disappointing as I look at it right now. Multiracial Aquaman, aka Jason Momoa, who is himself multiracial, 81.8% approval, with 18.2% strongly disapproving of multiracial Aquaman.
Wow.
But 90% approval rating of Black Jackson Hyde, and 10%.
Aquaman's whole thing is that he's biracial.
Well, I mean, I guess they want their blonde-haired, blue-eyed, Aryan Aquaman. So yeah, I know, very sad. But at least Jackson Hyde, who was also able to family chain his dad, Black Manta, or as I like to call him, Krillmonger. 100% approval sitting right now for Black Manta. Also, 100% approval rating for Jesse Hyde, his grandfather. Also, 100% approval rating for Lucia Hyde, his mother. Also, 100% approval rating for Delilah, his sister. But again, we still got time for those things to play out, so we have to wait. But currently, one thing that was able to close, 100% approval rating for Polynesian Viv Vision. But I missed Dad Vision. 100% approval rating for Polynesian Vision. So both Visions, Dad Vision and Viv Vision, I got to give them their points. I gotta be honest, I didn't see the Vision, but
Didn't see
the
it
people
either.
did. The people did. Can't be mad at it. What about you, Carlos? Did you see Polynesian Vision? Was that in your mind's eye, imagination wise?
Not in the slightest. No. Polynesian voting is like all or nothing. It really is.
Yeah. Vision's such like a composite of so many people. And to say that every single one of them was Polynesian is a little bit of a stretch.
Look, I feel like the internet successfully racial drafted Vision for Black delegation. Vision, there were so many memes. He wears a do-rag. He's got the chains. Like I'm just surprised that the Black delegation didn't make the move. Or at least try to get the trade in for Vision. They would have got some points there. But speaking of points, at least there was some love for multiracial Andy Curry, Aquaman's daughter. And there's currently 100% approval for Aquaman's mother. And also 75% approval rating for Ocean Massa, which that's something that I'm perfectly acceptable. I can perfectly deal with Ocean Massa being at least white passing, But I get it. Staying in the Aqua family, Tempest was part of that trade that we mentioned before, and is currently sitting at 87.5% approval for East Asian Tempest. Now, Blade, of course, 100% approval, because he's where he always needed to be, right?
Right.
Now, me personally, I wouldn't mind a Blade that's multiracial, because he uses so much, like aesthetics from anime and martial arts movies and the like, that you know, if he was Black and Asian, you know, I'd be into it. He's got the tattoos and with the Asian characters and stuff, you know, like,
Yeah.
but I get it. The people are like, nah, Black Blade.
Yeah, Blade is another one. Like his whole story revolves around being of two worlds. So
Yeah, but one of those worlds is the vampire world.
yeah, you know, vampires are white. We all know that.
All right, so we've got our Vixen for Black Canary trade. Vixen, personally, I think probably better fit, you know, with the Black delegation than the multiracial delegation, even though I feel like I made the case that, you know, in terms of features, because she's a model, these sort of like exotic features probably gets her further in the Eurocentric modeling industry, but I'm not opposed to her being, you know, sort of like full African. So currently 87.5% approval rating for Black Vixen, fully Black Vixen, and 88.9% approval rating for multiracial Black Canary. So voters, do your thing. Just try to get them up, just a couple more votes to get them above 90 points, 90%, and get those approval points. Family chaining, Kuwasa, Vixen's sister from the Arrowverse, 100% approval rating, probably because the Kawasa picture has her wearing a kufi. You know, gotta do that. And also 100% approval rating for Amaya. Maybe it's just people who like Legends of Tomorrow. So
That makes sense.
We'll see how that plays out. Multiracial Dinah Drake, that would be Dinah Lance's mother, also sitting at 100% approval rating. So not mad at that. I mean, it makes sense. The Canaries being, you know, kind of Black Canary, you know, like Black-ish Canary, if you will. But moving on to the Native American delegation, one more defensive pick, Shaman, right? Shaman, 100% approval for Shaman. I will give them their points. Michael Two Young Men, which is a really weird last name, I gotta admit. Anytime I hear that, I just think of YMCA. Moving on, I think that brings us to, nope, the trade. There we go. Rio Morales, Monica Rambeau, 100% approval rating for Black Monica Rambeau.
Yep.
85.7% approval rating for Latina Rio Morales, which is, I feel that's racist. I mean,
It's certainly, yes, it is. That's a fact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So listeners, you've got almost a whole week to get that up above 90. Do your thing, Twitter. But yeah, I think we successfully ran through the week of trades. Jared, favorite trade?
It's probably gonna be the America Chavez for
Yara Flor?
Yeah, just the family tree that brought together was good.
Yeah, I could hear that. That makes sense.
And it works out. Like Yara Flor is indigenous. Like
yeah,
you know.
True.
Like it just makes the most sense out of, in my opinion, everything. I'm sure there are some other ones, but like that coupled with the family tree was nice. I
mean, I like the Jessica Jones for Forge trade, you know, brought Forge into the fully Native American fold. And, you know, Jessica Jones, I know that there are some people who like look at Jessica Jones as like a white woman, you know, but she's really have to be a white woman. Like her story's not like that much about being privileged. I mean, I guess supposed to be like light skinned, have like little tiny bit of privilege from being light skinned, but I don't. I mean, she's still a victim of like sexual violence. Like nobody cares about it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like that puts her in some commonalities with women of color, and of course the Thor, like underrated, the Thor for Moon Knight trade. That was to me, both of those were like high profile characters, ending up in the place that's probably, for being honest, Oscar Isaac, major movie star,
right?
Obviously, what's his name, Chris Hemsworth, also major movie star. We get those castings back, we get those characterizations back when you make that trade. I mean, that's one of my favorites. But I mean, I like all these trades. Honestly, there were no trades that were made over the week that I kind of thumb my nose at. So, we'll see. I mean, listen, this is, I won't say it's the official end of the season, because we got to come back next week and talk about the final approval ratings and some of the trickling in of last second scores. But it's looking pretty good in terms of total points for the Latinx delegation. I may as well read off for the listeners where we are in terms of scoring. Give me a second, guys.
Start from the bottom, because it's always the best to hear me last.
Oh yeah, I get it. I understand. Spoiler alert, listeners. For those of you who it might not have been your first time listening to this show, but yeah, in 10th place with a total of keep on going. All right, here we go. In 10th place with 707 points, the Polynesian delegation. In 9th place with 767 points, the Swana Mena delegation. In 8th place with 949 points, the Jewish delegation. In 7th place, thank you, with 971 points, the Native American delegation. In 6th place with 1,111 points, the South Asian delegation. In 5th place with 1,169 points, the white delegation. In 4th place with 1,335 points, the multiracial delegation. In 3rd place with 1,378 points, the Southeast Asian delegation. In 2nd place with 1,401 point, the Black delegation. And in 1st place, the Latinx delegation.
Can you give me a score?
With 1,741 points.
Okay.
Yes. Let's go ahead and find out who your top scorer is. I have a theory about who your top scorer might be.
Yeah, what are we doing? What are we doing?
Yeah, but let's find out, for the benefit of the listeners, who the top scorer in the Latinx delegation might be. With 496 points. Wait, no,
is that with bonus points?
Yes, that's with bonus
points. Okay.
Yeah, 496 points. Bruce Wayne, aka Batman. That's a lot of points, guys. That's it's less than a third of your points. It's less than a third of my points. It is less than a third of your points, but it's one character. Your number 2 character with 202 points, Thor Odinson. And
Yeah.
no more.
Like I said, as soon as I got Thor, I was like, all right, I'm probably in good shape for the rest of this season, because Batman and Thor, like, that's a pretty rough tandem.
Yeah, and so it's looking good. It's looking good for the returning champion. Is this 2-time champion or 3-time champion?
This will be the third.
Wow, the three-peat.
I joined season 2, so seasons 2, 3, and 4 will be that next domination.
The I don't. How do you say three-peat in Spanish?
Carlos.
Oh, and that's where we'll leave it, listeners. We'll leave it with that kind of touchdown dance or dunk on the rest of the delegations. If you want to come back next season and see whether Carlos dunks on your favorite ethnic group, go ahead and continue to follow us, as he will definitely let us all know that he's a 3-time champion. Carlos, where can they find you on Twitter?
I'm at Carlos Freitas Jr. I'm also found on agentsofandom.com, where I've written a few pieces, got some more coming out.
All right. Jared, where can they find you on social media?
I'm on Twitter, Jared Kirsch _.
Okay. And they can find your written work on Murphy's Multiverse.
Correct.
You can find me sometimes writing on Murphy's Multiverse. Maybe I'll even write something for Agents of Fandom. Maybe I will. But you can also find me on Twitter at MTFIII like I said, on Twitter. You can find the Racial Draft at Racial Draft Pod on Twitter, racial.draft on Instagram, or Racial Draft on Facebook. We're still going to keep doing this. With trades are happening, behind the scenes shenanigans are happening. We're going to kick back off with season 5 in October, so we've got a little bit of a soft period as we retool and we kind of get it going. Try to build up our delegations. But listeners, if you'd like to be part of the discussion, if you'd like to be part of the different delegations, hit me up, and we can talk about it. Come back next week as we find out all of the different cascade of approval points that I'm going to be raising or raining down like at the strip club. But guys, this was fun. Listeners, I hope you had fun with us. But until next time, all things are possible.